How's it going, everyone? TitanHawk17 here again today, bringing you another tutorial on the startgg API, this time showing you how to check for the event entrant registration. So let's get right into it. All right, everyone, so we're back here in Visual Studio Code right where we left off in the last video with part 2 with how to get the event results. I'll go ahead and put the card in the top right corner of your screen. You can go ahead, click on it, and check it out if you haven't already. Today, we're going to be checking the event registration for teams in the startgg API. As you can see, we already got the import statements here. There is one we are missing. If you remember from event results, how we have const sleep equals required./sleep. We're going to go ahead, copy and paste this over into here, as we're going to need the sleep function again to make sure we comply with the rate limits. Other than that, looks like we're already ready to get started. We already got the file structure created from previous videos. So let's go ahead. Let's jump right into how to check the event registration. All right, so before we go any further, I'd like to jump back to get event results real quick. So you'll notice I have it all highlighted already. Funny enough, we're going to use almost all of the exact same first 20 some lines of the get event results in our check event registration. So I'll go ahead and copy that for now. We'll head back here into check event registration. And we're going to do module.exports equals object check event registration. This will be our function name, and then I'll do control V, and we have it all printed here. You can see there's an error. That's because we're missing one bracket. So we can go ahead and add that, and I'll indent this over for organization. And now there's one other thing that we need to add before we go any further. We need to make sure in our method parameters, we need to also pass in the entrant name. That way we know as soon as we find this entrant name, we are good to return from the function and say, hey, we found this entrant. They are registered for this event. If we don't find it, we can also return that as well. Again, if you are unfamiliar with any of this code, I highly recommend going back in the second episode of this series where I go ahead and break down the query. But for now, I'll give you a short little recap. So first, we define some variables up here that we're going to use in our while loop that's coming up next. Then we go ahead and use our fetch function here to make sure we get all of the event entrants, which is stored along this path here. We make sure we have the await keyword in front of fetch. That way we do not proceed any further until we obtain the number of entrants and we are completed with this fetch call. Now we are ready to begin our while loop. So the first thing we're going to do is define our loop variables here. So what we're going to do, we need to make sure that the number of entrants is always less than the number of entrants found. If we found more entrants, than the number of entrants found, then we know not to proceed any further. We can go ahead and add it here at our brackets here to make sure we can go ahead and start coding inside of here. So funny enough, we're also going to go ahead and copy and paste this fetch function here, because we're going to need to make sure we make another API call. And this time, though, we're going to make sure that we are actually accessing the list of event entrants, because that is what we care about. So we can go ahead and paste that here, and we are ready to start filling in some of our query parameters. You'll notice back here in this queries.txt file, I already have it listed down here at the bottom with our check event registration. This is the query we're going to use to make sure we are able to get all of our team names and our entrant names that are in this tournament. So you can see here, it follows a very similar structure to the query that tells us the total number of entrants in this event. So what we are able to do is just say, hey, instead of just giving us the page number and the page information, we want you to give us a list of each of the team or entrant name along with each of the participants and their gamer tag. You don't need the participants and the gamer tag part. That is only if you are trying to get roster information from this event. If you want to check to make sure every player on a team is registered, you would add the verified object value here, and that will tell you if someone is actually registered for the tournament and they are verified to compete. But for now, we won't use that in this tutorial, but you can use it if you want. I also just realized that I did not put in the correct sign in the while loop, so we're gonna go ahead and flip that to say that the number of entrants is always going to, while the number of entrants is greater than the number of entrants found, we want to make sure we keep going. Now we just need to pass in our query variables here, which is going to be event ID, which is our event ID that we pass into the function, our page, which will be page number that we defined earlier, and our per page, and we're going to say 50 as this will allow us to get all the information in a timely manner. We'll still have to call sleep a couple times depending on the size of the event, but we have enough objects here to where it is small enough to where we can ask for 50 teams at a time. So now we're ready to go ahead and start breaking down this data. So it's going to follow a very similar thing again to make sure what we do not cause any out of bounds errors or undefined errors. We're going to use our loop condition variable that, if you remember that from the previous video with get event results, how we have this here to check to make sure we don't go out of bounds. We're actually going to do the exact same thing with check event registration. So we're going to go ahead, copy and paste that over to make up the time. And now what we can do is do a while loop, or excuse me, do a for loop again to go through the teams. So we'll say for let I equals 0, I is less than the loop condition, and I plus plus. We can go ahead and say if entrant name, that's our parameter, if that is triple equal to, and now here's where we need to make sure we get the team from the where we are in the loop. So this is going to be data.event.entrants.nodes I, because remember nodes is a list, name. If that is equal, we found the team name and they are registered for this event. So we can go ahead and say console.log, and we can say team name, or excuse me, entrant name is registered for this event. Now you can add more functionality here to make sure that this returns the actual name of the event, and that will be really easy. Is all you have to do up here is just go ahead and add in inside this first event ID here, before the entrance query, we can just add a name method or name value here, and this will go ahead and allow us to get the name of the event. So if we want to do that, you can, but for now, I'm going to leave that out. So we can go ahead and just leave this as is. And the second we found that this team is registered, we can go ahead and return, because we don't need to go any further because we already found the team. Now, the only thing we have left to do is just make sure we increment the number of entrants we found and increase the page number, and then call sleep on the function. So, or in the while loop, excuse me. That way we do not hit the rate limit. So, as you probably guess, a lot of repetition in the code here. We can go ahead and copy and paste this. I'm also going to copy and paste this .catch for the error, just in case any errors occur while we're running this code. We are ready for it and we will catch them. Otherwise then, this looks pretty good and we are ready to test. Before we begin testing, there are a couple things I want to add to this function still. So first, I'm going to add a backup variable in the event that the code is not able to detect fast enough that we return from the function. So I'm going to add a variable that says let team or entrant found equal false. We're going to switch this to true when we find our entrant. So when we say, hey, we found our entrant, they are registered for this, we're going to say entrant found equals true. And then down here, outside of our while loop, we need to add something to inform the user that the entrant is not registered for the event. But we want to make sure first, we are absolutely certain that the entrant did not exist in the list of entrants in this startgg event. So we can go and say if not entrant found, because if you remember, entrant found is defaulted to false, which means that if we did not find them, that value will still be false, and not false is true. So now we can just say console.log. We'll go ahead and copy this because it's going to be very similar. Console.log entrant name is not registered for this event. Now this looks pretty good. We're ready to test. I already have it laid out here in index.js. The const event registration equals require with the import. And then I have a couple test cases here. So we can go ahead and do node index.js. So we are able to say, yes, University of Minnesota is registered for this event. Now we can go ahead and try something where I know this is not the case. If you're a little uncertain with this, you can go ahead and run the event results. That way you get the full list of teams that competed in this event, and that will tell you if they were registered for the event. So we can go ahead and save this now, save our changes, do node index.js. We'll go ahead, give it a few seconds. Now this should take a little bit longer. If a team is not registered, it's going to take longer because it needs to go through all of the teams. Now, if a team is registered, it should go faster because as soon as it finds it, the function should return. So here it says, hey, they're not registered. Now we have one more test case, UMN green, where we can go ahead and prove that green does not belong with the University of Minnesota, as if you know the University of Minnesota colors, it is maroon and gold. And look at that, UMN green is not registered for this event. So just like that, we were able to prove how we can check to see if a team or an event or an entrant or a player or whatever you want to define them as is registered for an event. So this concludes this tutorial video. If you enjoyed it, please be sure to like and subscribe for more future content on the startgg API, as well as comment down below. Let me know what queries you would like to see me do in this tutorial series. That way I can show you how to execute them successfully. Other than that, my name is Titanhawk17, wishing you all a fantastic rest of your day wherever you may be.